It is better for one man to die for the people than for the whole nation to be destroyed. These words of Caiaphas, the high priest at the time, were said by Caiaphas not necessarily from a desire to love Jesus. This was not a great desire to promote the work of Jesus Christ in any way, shape or form. It was perhaps from a place of fear of the Romans, of fear of losing power. But he speaks these words as a prophet. And within the Jewish community, there were specific people who spoke words. And when those words were recorded, sometimes they weren't entirely sure what they were even saying. Sometimes when we read the scriptures, there are, especially amongst more contemporary scholars, there is this great desire to want to get to what was the original human author's intent behind what he was writing or she was writing. And some of that might be useful. However, this passage here reminds us that there are people who speak and they don't really know what they're saying. They were saying it from a bad place, but God uses those words in a prophetic way. God is the author of the scriptures. God is the primary author of the scriptures. It's not John, it's not Peter, it's not Moses, it's not all of the people who were the earthly writers. God is the primary author. That's what the church teaches and believes. And so when someone writes, one of the human authors writes some of the texts of the scriptures, first and foremost, we shouldn't be necessarily concerned about what the human author is saying, but what is God telling us? Here we have Caiaphas speaking these words, thinking that what he's saying is to protect himself and to whip up the crowd to bring about the death of Jesus Christ. However, we know that these words are truly prophetic. These words come from God. But the way that Caiaphas understood them is very different to the way we should understand them. It is better for one man to die for the people than for the whole nation to be destroyed. We know that the death of Jesus Christ brings salvation to the whole world. His sacrifice of his life brings about salvation for us all, and it is an incredible thing. The whole world is not destroyed because Jesus Christ offers the greatest sacrifice. We have a path open to heaven for us because of what Jesus Christ has done. We have an eternal city, the eternal city of Jerusalem. It's not just a physical place. It is a place of eternity which was opened for us because of what Jesus has done. This was not in the mind of Caiaphas, but he has these words. So from the very earliest of times in the church, many of the early church fathers reminded the community, when you read the scriptures, first and foremost, think of it, what does it mean from the words of God? Because the scriptures are primarily not a historical text, not a record of political activity. They are a work of theology. They are revealing God to us. So what is God saying to us? Over and over again, when we read the scriptures, what is God saying to us? It's interesting to have a look at what the person they're writing about, perhaps Caiaphas, perhaps Pontius Pilate. It's interesting to look at what they have to say. But what is God speaking to us? This evening we begin Palm Sunday and we begin Holy Week. And our scriptures are beautiful over the next week. Listen to the scriptures carefully. Enter into not just what the human writers were talking about, but what is God saying? Perhaps through each of these different people. Perhaps each of these people didn't even realise what they were saying, because that's the way prophecy works. They say words, but they're really messengers of God, unknowingly saying the words of God. So let us seek out in these coming days God's words in the midst of our scriptures. When we hear the Passion, when we hear the stories of the Last Supper, when we hear the stories of the resurrection, what is God speaking to us? What is God speaking to the Christian community at the time of the resurrection? What does God speak to us today? Let us delve deeply into not just the human author, but into the divine author, Jesus Christ, the Word made flesh.